Hello and welcome to Captain's Dry Dock. And in the dry dock today, if you haven't guessed, is the final installment of my Denuo Novo first order armor build. First fitting. Let's get it on. First things first, we start with the bodysuit. Now, I personally do not recommend this. In fact, it's a terrible idea. After several wearings of this, you can see the shiny part of the shorts starts peeling off. And I do not recommend this approach. However, I do recommend this. Stretchy shorts. Yes, it does look a little bit dodgy, and when you're going on eBay to buy these, it's a bit fetishy, but they're super comfortable, and this is all you need. Compared to the original Stormtrooper, where you need the full-on bodysuit, most of this armor and all the gubbins, such as the gaskets, will hide everything else underneath. So really, all you need is a black t-shirt and a pair of these. Let's put them on. Now, just a side note about this. So previously, people believed that the shorts were meant to be shiny, almost like PVC. But in fact, later research has told us it's meant to be like a pleather type material. Now, you can get away with something like this, which is like Lycra. The 501st seems to be okay with that. But if you want to go really like hardcore canon, make sure that it's more like a pleather type leather black material. So it's not super shiny. It's got just a bit of a sheen to it. A bit like this. Next is the webbing. Now, if you see my videos previously, I made this all from scratch myself. And in fact, you can just buy this from Geeky Pink. She does a really good job. But this one's mine. And this is quite nice. And it fits me perfectly. So that is all on. And this holds on all the other bits of armor, which you'll see next. The thighs. Now, as you can see, what I've done, I keep the gaskets actually attached inside. It makes it so much easier to put on later. Now, you can see which one's left and right. So the right-hand side one, yeah, has the holster, and left-hand side one doesn't. It's very straightforward. So first off, we're going to put on the right-hand side. Now, all I need to do is slip this on. There we go. And what I'm going to do with my webbing, I'm just going to release it a bit. Just give it a little bit more slack. So it means you can clip it in easily. And when I say easily, there's really nothing easy about putting on this armor on your own. And that clips in like so. Next is the left one. Now you find the order of operations is very similar to other Stormtrooper outfits. Now some troopers may do it differently, but I find that going from the thighs is probably the best place to start. And there we go. Now, as I've adjusted these to be a bit loose, I'm going to keep them that way so there's a lot more movement, so I can twist them around a bit for the next step, which is the lower part of the legs. Now, some troopers will do this in a different order, but sometimes I find that actually putting the boots on first and then the calf section later is much easier, especially when you're bending over. The boots. Now, not to be mistaken for the Chelsea boots, the original Stormtrooper, these have a specific look to them if you've seen my previous videos. And I can tell you where I got those in a link below on this video. Now, all I need to do is pop them on. So to help myself bend over, because with Stormtrooper armor, it's so restrictive, I like to twist the thigh a little bit to give me a bit more bendy movement so I can actually reach my feet. And they went on really nicely, really easy to put on. So next are the calves. So the left-hand side one has got the Kit Kats and right-hand side one doesn't really have much. Now, these are notorious for breaking and cracking because there's not much flex to them, but they need to go around your calf muscle. Now, if you're a rugby player, you probably have big calf muscles as well as your boots on as well. And so you just have to be very careful. There's no definite way of how to do this. You just have to work out yourself. And over a period of time, this will flex a little bit more. As you probably noticed, I've still not tightened my webbing yet because it still allows me to bend right over and fit everything on. And when I put the calf section on, I could just pull this up or move it around as much as I want until it's all in there. Also, be sure to tuck in the gasket as you put it on, because once you have your armor on and you're on your own, it's a bit of a ball ache to bend over and try and tuck that in. That's if you notice it. Next is the right side, pretty much exactly the same. You may not have heard that because I sped this up, but there were some cracks and snaps as I was putting this piece on, mainly because that ridge and it's a strengthened part and it doesn't flex at all. But it's not a big deal. These things do happen, especially on your first fitting, so do not worry about it. You can always fix plastic later. Next is the spats. No, I didn't spit, but these are the cuffs that go at the bottom of your calf section of the armor. Now, these ones are the ones by Denuo Novo, plasticky. Now, even though they're plastic, there's actually still quite a lot of flex, but they're prone to breaking as well. And as I've mentioned in previous videos, a link down below, you can actually get urethane versions of these, which are super flexible. And if you do a lot of trooping, I highly recommend it. And these are really easy to pop on. One thing I love about this Denuo Novo armor is that it's got this ridge and the flange, so it locates really easily on the calf section. No Velcro required, other than popping this together at the back. And there we have it, the bottom section all on. It wasn't too much of a faff, and now all I need to do is adjust the webbing. I'm going to bring it all the way up until it goes right into my crotch, and I can tighten that as much as I want, and I can actually adjust it later on and bring it down if it's not too comfortable. The other thing you need to make sure, this is where you need to have a spotter or a mirror, is to make sure that your gaskets are tucked into the legs. Now, the one thing I do say, if this is your first armor, you notice this, the noise. There's squeaks and cracks and bangs, and it's not silent whatsoever. And you basically walk around as if you're wearing a bunch of yogurt cartons. It's such a weird experience because no one ever talks about it. But yeah, as you walk around, people know you're coming around the corner. Next are the shoulder gaskets. Now, these are slip-on. Now, it's a bit weird because it's just the shoulders and the arms. And make sure that the buckle is at the front, not at the back. And it slips on like that. And this is what I mean about not needing a bodysuit, because the gaskets cover up all the in-between bits. And then you got the buckle here. Now, again, I've mentioned before when I reviewed this kit, Denuo Novo's gaskets are pretty good. These ones work out really well. However, Geeky Pink does a really good set, and it fits on like that. One thing I like to add, there's actually quite a lot of movement to this, and it does feel very, very comfortable. I think with Denuo Novo's gaskets, because they're cloth, they breathe as well. So if you are in a hot climate, I do recommend sticking to Denuo Novo's gaskets. Talking of gaskets, this is the last one to put on yourself, and this will be the neck gasket. Now, I'm going to put this on now because once you have the rest of the armor on, all the straps, it's going to be very hard to put this on at the end. So I like to put this on now, which means I'm going to have to move around my microphone. So the gasket's really easy to pop on, and some Velcro at the back, but it's so easy to get that misaligned, like so. Unless you have someone to help you, which I really highly recommend. Next is the main part of the armor, the trunk. Now this is the best part because it really does make you feel like you are becoming a stormtrooper. And for this, you just have to walk into it. Now there's a lot of flex to this, so you don't have to be super careful. But one thing you've noticed, it's better to put the crotch part of the armor on before rather than after, because it's very hard to look down and snap it all together unless you've got a friend helping you. So I would say this is the easiest part of putting on the armor, other than the helmet. But there we go. Now I've got to do up all the buckles all by myself, as well as the zip. So as before, I do recommend making sure that the webbing is really slack, so it's easy for you to bring it over your shoulders. And as you can see, it's a little bit low down, which helps me move things around. And now I need to do the zip all by myself. Yeah, having a friend will be much easier to do all this. And then once you've got the zip up, you then have to pull on the webbing. And I like to recommend that you bring it all the way up to your armpit. One thing I do say, you may start realizing that you may need to adjust your own armor to fit your body type. Now, I've been going to the gym recently, not that you can tell, but my upper body is gone into a bit more of a V shape. But one thing I've noticed that troopers do, they cut a curved section underneath the armpit so there's more breathing room. And because it's hidden, no one will notice the difference other than your own comfort. Now that's all on, the last thing to do with the trunk is the thermal detonator. Now, this is quite a heavy piece of equipment because this is pretty much like solid resin. And as I've done with the main trunk, I've added the plate on already rather than doing it later. So I've snapped those together, and then I've got the stretchy band here, which will connect to the crotch plate. What I've done here to make it easier for me to put on by myself, because I've got no friends, is that I've made this lip a little bit more angled outwards so it finds the location of the back really easily, as you will see now. So all I do, I bring it round to my back and I go all the way up and I fit here the tab clicking in and bring it back down. Now, again, this is one of those things where I've often said it's really good to actually get a friend to make sure it's all aligned. But because I've actually added an indent, it should align automatically. But if it doesn't, it's not a big issue. It's just a first fitting. I just want to make sure everything all just fits into place. And then I would say I'll definitely get someone to check this out for me later, or pop a mirror in front of myself. Now, this is where things get a little bit weird. I've got to try and locate the elastic band from the back to the front all by myself. Now, if you had a friend, they'll be in between your legs trying to help you out, clip that on, so these things aren't flapping about all over the place. However, I'm going to do this by myself, so I'll need to speed this up a bit. Haha, got it. And all you need to do now, well, I say all you need to do is just hook it to the hook that you've got on the inside of your crotch plate like so. Now, it would be better if it's tighter, but because I'm doing this by myself, I would say that you need to have it looser just so you can grab onto the thing yourself. This is actually feeling very snug and I'm beginning to feel like a trooper. So already I feel really good wearing this. Now, next is the belt. Now, out of the entire setup of trying to put this on, in my own experience, my previous arm I've had, the belt is the hardest thing to put on because it's made exactly to the girth and nothing really gives way. It's not as if you can suck yourself in. So it means there's a lot of faffing about. And this is a first fitting, which means I may have to adjust this later. Now, the best thing to do, because you've got snaps on the inside, is locate them first. So you start from the front. That snaps in really easily, and then feed it all the way around. And the thing is about this belt, although it's not meant to keep your trousers up, the other function it has is that it keeps all the armor together and stops it from flapping about. And it's a case of once you snap it together, is hide the buckle with a flap of the rubber, with rubber, and then move the pouches over to the front. Now, I'm already feeling that this belt does need to be slightly tighter, and I do know that many troopers will make this belt thicker, which I've actually got a tutorial on when I did my Imperial Surplus Armor build, link down below. As I can't see my progress, I'm going to explain to you what should happen. So what the belt does, it brings the thermal detonator and the butt plate all together and keeps it all in place. Should be. So if it doesn't look like it's happening, it's only because I can't see for myself. The last big piece to put on is the yoke. Now, this is perhaps the most recognizable piece of the entire armor. It's beautiful in every way, but I have to warn you, I know when I've actually put this on for my Imperial Surplus kit before, it's a nightmare to put on without breaking it because there's so many weak points around the shoulder arches here. So if there are any snaps, I can imagine there might be. It's just one of those things you just need to be careful as you shinny it on. Now, during my build, I have explained to make things easier, it's good to actually try and to make as much gap as you can from here without actually interfering in the overall design. But it's still not enough room. And so you just need to do the best you can slowly and listening out if you're straining the plastic whatsoever. That went on surprisingly really well. Now, one thing I do recommend, as you probably saw, the shoulder belts are already attached because, look, there's hardly any movement to be able to put those on yourself. So put them on. And one thing I do say, there's always a risk of these things popping off as you're popping this whole thing on over your head. It does actually happen, and that's when you need someone to help out for you. Next, my most favorite part, other than the helmet, the chest plate. It is absolutely gorgeous. And the way I've made this, I've actually added very strong rare earth magnets on the inside, so it should all locate automatically. Let's give it a go. Wow, see how easy that was with rare earth magnets? Now, on my previous armor, I used Velcro and it was actually okay. However, you can't see if it's aligned or not. Again, you need help, but these rare earth magnets snap into place. Just by hearing it, you know that everything's going to be aligned. One thing I have noticed now I've got the chest plate on, everything feels really tight and against my skin. I wouldn't say it's uncomfortable, but I can imagine if you're trooping all day in this, it does get a bit much. One thing I would actually do for this armor, I would actually add those cutouts underneath my armpit just so there's breathing room. Next are the biceps. Now, they go on quite easily. They just slip on just as if they were cuffs. So the one thing you need to make sure that they are the right way round is see those clips there? They need to be facing the viewer, like so. One thing I did with these bicep parts of the armor, they're not just completely loose here. There's some Velcro I stitched onto the actual gasket, and I put a corresponding piece of Velcro on the inside of this. So this won't rotate round because if you don't have that, this will go around the other side and you're constantly having to adjust yourself. So the aim when you're putting on armor and also when you're making it is try and make it really faff free. So when you put things on, things aren't moving around too much. We are almost there, and I'm kind of sweating already. I'm in a warm room, so it's something to bear in mind that once you're putting this stuff on, it's already quite an energetic task in itself before even trooping. So the one of the last things I need to put on are the gauntlets or the forearm parts of the armor. Now these are straightforward to put on. You can tell which way around they go. The rule of thumb of all this armor is making sure that the clips are facing the viewer, and that's how you know which way around everything goes. Unlike what I did before on my Peel Surplus armor, I actually wore them the other way round. Uh, so these slip on very easy. You just have to make sure that the gasket's tucked on the inside. Now, although there's Velcro on the edge of the gasket, giving you the option to put Velcro on the inside of the forearm piece of the armor, you don't really need it. In fact, your hand holds it in place once you have the glove on. And also, it's a bit of a faff trying to actually pop this on with some Velcro and then when you're having to remove it all by yourself. So you don't actually really need it. These slip on really easily and they pretty much stay in place. And that's it. One thing you will actually realize, yep, your freedom of movement now goes out the window. Now, there's a little trick with these forearm pieces of armor. If you like to twist them round, you've got a little bit more movement like so. But really, once you've got all this armor on, there's really little movement. So when you watch the films, you can really easily tell that their armor is not made out of plastic. It's made out of flexible urethane. So they're able to run around and jump about and basically die all the time. Now, this is a very optional thing, but I do recommend it. This is the balaclava. Now, when you're wearing your helmet, you want to give the illusion that you're a full-on stormtrooper and anonymous. And the problem is with these helmets, there's a big gap underneath them, unlike a motorcycle helmet, where people can see in because most people are looking up at you because they're kids, and you don't want that. You want to be able to look anonymous and not any flesh showing whatsoever. So I advise only a couple of quids. Get it on eBay, get it on Etsy, a nice stretchy black balaclava. Yep, I had to do a quick cut there because I realised that the forearm parts made this job so restricted that I took them off just so I could put the balaclava on. Ideally, actually, you should put the balaclava on before the rest of the armour, but you live and learn as you put it on the armour, and then you'll find out what's better for you in the order of operations. We are so close. Now, the last thing I need to put on, other than the helmet, is the gloves. Now, I don't need to show you how to put those on, but one thing I do say is that depending on the gloves that you get, sometimes they will have Velcro, which doesn't correspond exactly. So this will have the hook side and this will have the loop side. So when you actually put Velcro onto the armor plate, you need to make sure that it corresponds to the right glove. And I think that's why he did it, because the armor plates are different from left hand to right hand. Now, this is feeling really restrictive. It has way more parts in original Stormtrooper armor. It's getting a little bit hotter. And if you haven't already noticed, if you look at the shoulder bell, yet one of the snaps have come away. And so it's a really good indication and example of why you really do need to actually have a helper. But if you're doing trooping in a club, that's what they're there for. You help each other out. They'll have spotters. And if you're going out on your own, try not to have a partner or a friend with you just so they can adjust and help you out because these things will actually happen when you start trooping. Now, let's get to the pièce de résistance. The helmet. Yes, this thing started me on my journey when I saw this in the windows down near Tottenham Court Road in London, and I got it on sale. This started me on this whole path of loving this armor. So this guy here, this is why I do all this. Now, there's a little option which I need to point out before I put this helmet on because you won't hear me, and that's precisely it. You can, and most troopers do, get themselves a voice amp. So you can get a cheap one online. I got this for around about 10, 15 quid. Although you can actually get more advanced ones where they got the clicks and whistles and bangs that you may hear some stormtroopers have. But in fact, with the Force Awakens troopers, unlike the original troopers, you can't hear those clicks and whistles and bangs as if they're on a radio. All it is just an amplified voice. So you can actually just make do with one of these, which I tend to do. But for this example, I'm not going to pop that on right now. But if you are going to use it, one thing I do say is when you put on the trunk part of the armor, is to put it on around about there, underneath the chest plate. Or what I've seen some troopers do is actually pop it actually in one of the pouches on their left hand side, and they sometimes even have Bluetooth connection to the headset on their head. So it's just an idea because when it comes to this armor, it's never complete. You always want to improve it. So with that, I'm going to pop this baby on. Now, in the community, they don't call it a helmet. They don't call it a lid like the motorcyclists. They call it the bucket. So I'm going to pop this on now. So already, as I started posing there, yep, the other shoulder bell popped because I lifted up my arm way too much. So yeah, really reinforces the idea that you do actually need someone to actually help you with this armor. But one thing I need to add is that this function here, which was by Dan, the holster, slots on perfectly. Now, when you had the bucket on, this is really hard to locate because you can't look down. However, as you just saw, I was able to still locate it and pop my blaster on all by myself without even looking. So it's a really good option to have if you want to be able to holster your blaster and just have hands free. As I was posing, you saw this, the riot baton. Now, this was not made by me. This was off the shelf. It's really, really good. And there was a good reason why I got this. Now, I'm based in the UK. There's very, very strict gun laws. When I say gun laws, I mean if something even looks like a gun, yep, you can actually be apprehended by the police. We have very strict rules about that. So I want to be able to walk around, especially on Halloween, around door to door with my daughter, my son, and walking around with a blaster, and especially this blaster, it looks too real. However, with something like this, I can still achieve the effect of looking like a menacing stormtrooper, but I've got myself a pretty much safe weapon that the police won't apprehend me over. So it's a really good option to have. One thing I do say about this particular one by this company here is that when I brought this to the 501st for approval, they get very anal about this. So instead of a grouping of 3 LEDs like here, you will literally have to take this apart and add some extra LEDs. Also, there's some little aesthetic things here, like you need to serve some black decals. But yeah, so if you are going to go 501st approved for this, you're going to have to take apart a very rare and very expensive thing. So how does it feel? Well, as I've mentioned, it's quite restrictive. There's so many parts on this. The advice I have is this. Order of operations. When you put this on, make sure you lay everything out on, let's say, a table that's waist height so you can reach it, because as you start putting this on, there's no way you can bend over. And also, you're running around trying to find which parts go on next. If you get it in the wrong order, then you're going to have to go back and redo it all over again. Advice 2, you're going to break it, you're going to scuff it, so don't worry and don't get hung up about it. This thing is going to be scraped and scratched when you're going on trooping, and even putting on the damn thing, you're going to probably damage it as well. So don't get too hepped up about it. Just understand and make peace with the fact that, yeah, you're going to have to repair things. Already, I'm going to have to repair a few cracks I heard when I put this on, but that's a whole enjoyment of having a Stormtrooper armor, is that it's a hobby that goes on and on and on. Advice 3, don't get yourself a bodysuit, just wear a t-shirt and a shiny shorts. This thing gets hot very quickly, even if you're in a colder climate, because of all the layers that you got on. And a piece of advice number 4. Now, I've said this many, many times already, but yeah, get yourself a helper, someone to spot you, because once you've got this on, it becomes so much more difficult. And if you do need help, yeah, you're just going to have to rely on someone else. So please make sure that if you are going to go out with someone else. And also when you're putting it on, and especially if you're applying for membership at a 501st or another organization which are pretty strict, someone can actually just check for you and adjust things because you're not going to be able to see it before you take those pictures. Now, I really hope you enjoyed my entire playlist of making this Stormtrooper armor by Denuo Novo, and I really hope you got something out of this and learned from my mistakes as well, and what I'm learning currently just standing in this armor. And if you want to stick around, please, please, please subscribe and like, because the next video is how I'm going to display this. And I've got the best recommendation for a mannequin to be able to show all this off. Because for so many years with my armor, I kept it under the bed, but now I've got myself a man cave, I've got some space, and I'm going to show you what I did with this armor. In the meantime, my name's John Child. I'm a 47-year-old man in plastic and lycra standing in front of you, and I'll see you on the next episode here on Cactus Dry Dock. You take care.